At the start of the 15th century, standing alone in a forest in a small island nation, a single man had decided to sacrifice everything, all that he had and ever was, in order to rise higher. He climbed, fought, and survived against the cold, bandits, and evil itself, all alone in total solitude, perfecting his art, the art of the sword. This man would go on to become known as Japan's greatest ever warrior, and his name was Miyamoto Musashi, and he was locked in. According to his own writings in the Book of Five Rings, he lived for nothing but his craft. And there's something about that image, the lone warrior in a dark cave sharpening his blade, that makes a specific part of my brain and yours tingle. We look at Musashi and we don't see a lonely, unwashed man who probably smelled freaking terrible. We see the apex of focus. Someone who went beyond the distractions and noise of society. And now, fast forward 400 years later, and even though we don't have katanas, we still share the same identical dream of becoming something better. To lock in means to give yourself to one task, one goal, one mission, until the moment of its completion. And men love the idea of this, the idea of being alone and miserable but somehow productive. We've been taught either directly or indirectly since a young age that the value of a man is tied to what he can provide and how much he can endure. That being quote-unquote misunderstood was just simply a part of greatness. Being focused is a necessity to achieving anything worthwhile in life, and that is something I truly wholeheartedly believe in. But like anything else in life, it can go horribly wrong. And Bobby Fischer is a great example of exactly that. In the early 70s, Bobby wasn't just a chess player, he was the king of it all. He treated chess not as a game but as a religion. He famously lived in empty apartments surrounded only by the boards that he played on. And he didn't have no friends, no partner, and barely any life outside the 64 squares. But you wouldn't find a single soul that didn't fall in love with Bobby's story back in 72. The story of the lone American genius who took down the Soviet machine. He sacrificed everything and he won. But unfortunately, if you look to what happened after he won, you would realize that the fantasy falls apart. After reaching the top, Bobby didn't celebrate, he spiraled. He spent the next few decades as a paranoid fugitive, living in cheap hotels, drifting from country to country, giving up his own nationality and ranting at anyone who would listen. He had no one to share his victory with because he had burned every bridge to achieve it. In a way, Bobby used chess as a shield, because for someone like him, solving chess problems was easier than going through the complex web of human relationships. Bobby locked himself in a cage of his own making and he lost the key, dying in the winter of 2008 in an Icelandic hospital, a bitter old man. Then there's the story of Miyamoto Musashi. Yep, the guy from earlier but the fictional version of him. The story of Vagabond follows Musashi as he goes through his journey of becoming the strongest swordsman in the world, cutting, killing, and destroying everyone who stood in his way. But after several years of going through the cycle, Musashi realized something. He was empty, and that simply becoming stronger won't fill this gap. You see, we fantasize about working hard enough in silence that by doing so we will eventually reach a place of fulfillment. But fulfillment was never found in the outside world. Fulfillment comes from within. If you stay in a cave sharpening your blade for far too long, you're not a hero anymore. You're just a guy who's very good at being in a cave by himself. You see, the hardest part of locking in is not actually the work itself. No. Because the work becomes repetitive, it becomes a routine, and we humans love when we have something predictable. So it's easy, relatively easy, to stick with a routine. What requires real courage, what requires real mettle, is going outside of your comfort zone, to communicate with others, to share your ideas and values with other people, and take feedback in a positive way. You see, Musashi didn't become who he was because he loved killing. He became a legend because eventually he realized the sword was just an extension of his soul. And a soul needs a world to live in. If you're in your self improvement era, I'm not telling you to stop. I'm simply telling you to check the door, to look at the outside world, and remember why you're doing what you're doing. Because a lot of us forget that life goes by really quickly. And one day, we ask ourselves, what did I spend my time on? And when you get to that point, I just wish that you are satisfied with your own answer. So work hard, get your wins, lock in when you have to. But remember, the goal isn't to be the strongest man in an empty room. The goal is to be strong enough to walk out of the room and handle whatever and whoever is waiting on the other side. And until next time, stay safe.